Welcome to Imprint, a podcast about creating a home and life you love. I'm Natalie Walton, an interior designer, stylist, and best-selling author focused on an holistic approach to homes. Each week, I'm sharing insights and interviews about the creative process to help you enhance both your interiors and well-being, as well as provide you with the tools and resources to make considered and sustainable choices with all that you create. Hello everyone, welcome to Imprint. Well, we are coming up to the end of 2024, and this is such a great time to actually take a moment to reflect and reset before you enter the new year. I find that this exercise that I'm going to be walking you through today is something that really helps ground me going into what is more, family time, personal time, time to really decompress and close all the mental loops that you might have open during the year where you're thinking about work and clients and deliverables and all the things that come with running a business. And I personally love, and I have done this now for about 5 or 6 years, where I completely switch off for at least 4 weeks over the Christmas period. And this is sort of end of December, start of January. I switch off my phone. I don't go into social media. I might have some scheduled posts, but, I'm not active in there. I am, I've pre-scheduled all my content for the podcast, for my newsletters. And so my business can continue to run without me, but I don't actually have to be present in my business. And I am so grateful that I've set this up in my business because it allows me to just completely switch off and come into the new year feeling really refreshed and excited for what's to come as well. So I'm going to run you through some exercises that I do to really close those mental loops. But if you still are thinking, I still need to do some planning for the new year, because that's something that I typically do within November. And I've done some big sessions within Design and Grow, big planning sessions. But I'm going to be doing another session of planning, depending on when you listen to this. So you can go to nataliewalton.com/plan. And if you are still thinking, I haven't done my planning yet for 2025, don't worry, it's not too late. I'm going to run through my system in relation to how you do that. So if that's of interest, go and sign up there. But I really encourage you to do these exercises as well, because they are really helpful, especially if you want to take a little bit of time off. It doesn't matter how short or how long. It's just such a beautiful way to close out the year. And it's kind of like decluttering. If you're decluttering your spaces, you need to look around, you need to assess what you've got right now. You need to decide on purpose what you're going to keep. And then you've got this beautiful blank canvas for what you can then create and the vision of what you want that space to be. So it's a very similar idea and exercise to do this within your business. Otherwise, you can get into a situation where December rolls into January and you feel like, oh, hang on, I just don't even feel like I've just had that mental decompression. I mean, that's why for me personally, on weekends, I don't touch my computer. I don't go on social media. I have always at the end of each week, I have a complete switch off from social media, from technology, and I am just completely present with my family. And then that means that when I come round to Monday morning, I'm really looking forward to Monday morning. I'm really energized and excited for the week ahead because, I have had time to really decompress and, look after my nervous system. Okay, so there are a few steps in this process. And the first step is to really reflect. It is so important to pause and actually look at some of the wins that you have experienced over the past year. It is really easy to, think, oh, I'm not where I want to be, or it didn't quite turn out how I wanted, or really feed into, the negative thoughts that can pop up in our minds. And, we all experience those. But instead, I want you to take this opportunity to really think about what are 5 wins that you have had from this past year. Now, feel free to just pause this episode and just think for a moment about what are 5 wins that you have experienced this year. If you want to, you can also, grab a notebook and maybe pause and actually write those down. There is something that really I find very powerful about going through this exercise. And I actually did this before I hit record. I went through all of these exercises and activities so that I could start to really close off the year. And it's really great. It's an important as well to think about this concept of what have you gained. I have spoken about this idea on a past podcast, and it's something that we do go through this exercise within Design and Grow, which is there's a book called The Gap in the Game. And it's it's really important within our businesses to look at the vision of what we want to create for ourselves, for our lives, for our businesses, and to have that vision and really stretch ourselves with the vision and the goals that we have, but to really recognize and not always be measuring ourselves against where we want to be, but instead measure ourselves backwards. So measure ourselves in terms of the gains that we have made, the progress that we have made. And sometimes the progress, and often the progress, are learnings. There are things that maybe didn't go right, and we think, okay, I now have more knowledge about this and I am better informed. And so going forward, I can make better decisions. So that can be a win. We don't need to always think that a win is like, oh yes, this went off perfectly, because so rarely anything does go perfectly. We need to make progress in many different ways. And in many instances, we actually want to rack up as many failures as possible, as many no's as possible, because the more no's that we have and the more failures that we get, it means that we're actually getting closer to where we want to be. So the people who don't have any failures or don't have any no's, what that tells me is that they're actually not in action. They're not moving into action. They're sitting on the sidelines waiting for life to happen to them. Life doesn't work like that. You've got to be proactive. You've got to go out there and really take responsibility for the results that you want in your life. And so part of that process is actually racking up more, in inverted commas, failures and more no's. The more failures and no's that you get, the better. So with that in mind, just take a moment to think about what are some wins that you have experienced in the past year. We did, as I said, we did this exercise recently within Design and Grow. And people, actually, one of the women that I was speaking to, she really said, this year for her, going through the activities that we do within Design and Grow, it has been so transformative for her, because she has huge perfectionist tendencies. And she said she's sort of working through those, and I can really relate to that. And she said it has really helped her see her progress in a completely different way. And so often how we know and understand about what we're achieving is so much in relation to our thoughts and what we make those thoughts mean. So, and she has had great wins. Just as we had spoken, she had booked 2 new big international clients at new rates with a new contract that really was going to reinforce her boundaries so much more in terms of revisions and so on. So she had experienced some great wins. We had other people were sharing that, they said no to clients that actually didn't align with them and the type of work that they wanted to do. Had other clients who were, getting more clients. And I love this story. I really want to share this. I had somebody share within the chat as we were going through this exercise. She said, my husband and I were going to cancel a family holiday to Japan. We've never had an overseas holiday as a family before, and we're all looking forward to it. I made an income goal that I thought was impossible, and I made it. We are now going to Japan in January. And I mean, that just gives me such goosebumps to think about, what an impact it can have when we put ourselves out there. And I know that this amazing woman, she's really stepped into her discomfort this year. And again, that is how we grow, is when we step into our discomfort. Another amazing woman within Design and Grow was saying that she had a client book and pay for 20 sessions, just before we had gone onto that call. So, it's so important to reflect, because we can so easily live in, but my social media is not where I want it to be, or I don't, I haven't had maybe as many people grow on my email list as I want. We can very easily live in that land, but it's really important to take the time to reflect and really think about what have been some of the wins from the year. So like I said, press pause, just think through some of them for you, or otherwise, if you can, sit down with a notebook and literally write down what have been 5 wins for you. They can be in relation to your business. They can be in relation to maybe boundaries that you have enforced. They can be even personal wins, but really reflect on what have been 5 wins for you this year. Now, the step 2 is to really embrace, like I said, we want to embrace the lessons. We want to really learn from experiences throughout the year. And so I want you to think about, what were some of the big lessons that you learned this year? Maybe it relates to, deciding the type of clients that you don't want to work with. Or maybe you did some collaborations and they didn't go as planned. And you really think, okay, I learned a lot about that experience and what works for me and what doesn't for me. Maybe you took on too much work, and you actually found yourself in a situation where you weren't able to deliver at the level that you really wanted to deliver and create the type of experience that you wanted to create for people. Maybe you didn't move into action. Maybe you have been circling in confusion or just getting stuck with procrastination and perfectionism. And you have kind of been, so focused on getting your branding right and your messaging right and your website right. And, you've been doing a million different courses and programs, and you're still not putting yourself out there and actually getting, offers, getting no's, having failures. Remember, you actually want to rack those up because you learn so much in that process. Maybe you are not following through on something that you said you were going to do. And if that is the case, always ask yourself why. Why didn't you follow through with what you said was important to you? Why didn't you stay committed to that goal? What is that discomfort that you are feeling? Because you will start to notice patterns that happen over and over again. And what are those patterns telling you? Okay, the next step is to do a review so you can redo your year. So really thinking about, if you were to redo this year that has just gone, if you had the opportunity to do it all over again, what would you do differently if you were to do this year again? How would you show up? How would you spend your time? What would you stop doing? And we're going to go through some questions in a moment in relation to this. What would you invest in? What wouldn't you invest in? Maybe you signed up for, a bunch of software programs, and now you can't even remember what you're using them for. Maybe you joined some courses and you still haven't even started them. So, but maybe there are other areas where you're like, actually, I really need to invest in this area because this is where I keep getting stuck, or this is where I'm feeling really, this is going to help me go to that next level. So really thinking about, what would you invest in? What type of people would you surround yourself with? Maybe you currently are surrounded by people who think very small, or they are really, when you listen to the way that they speak about themselves, or they speak about life and the world and how they think it works and all of those things, they really have a very negative outlook on life. Maybe it relates to the type of people that you surround yourself with. Or what do you want to be different about maybe your home or your business or your life? So I really like this kind of round of questions in terms of like, if you could do this again, what would you do differently? Or what would you say to yourself? If you were to have a conversation with yourself at the start of this current year, 2024, what would you say to yourself, knowing what you know now? Maybe you would say, just keep going, don't get distracted. Think about what you might say to yourself. I often ask that question at the end of, some of the interviews that I do on the podcast. And I say, what would you say to your younger self? So it's almost like a version of that question. knowing what you know now. And you can also project into the future as well and think, what would your future self say to you about 2025 in terms of what you should do? So that's always a great question. All right, we did this exercise in Design and Grow, and I'm going to share it with you here today because I think it's a great one to do. So what would you stop doing? What doesn't feel in alignment in terms of when you reflect on this past year? What do you want to stop doing? So for me, one of the things that has started to creep into my life and my business practice is I've kind of been working in some of the evenings, and less and less actually the last quarter. I've really tried to nip this in the bud. And part of the reason is because pretty much every single evening I've been going to some kind of after school activity or soccer training, or, there's been lots of different activities on during the week. And so I literally just do not have capacity to do any work in the evenings. But certainly earlier in the year, it was, as I was building out the program for Design and Grow, it started to get more and more. And so that is something that I really want to get back to, defining my boundaries in relation to work time and, non-work time, family time. So I want you to think about, what are you going to stop doing in 2025? The next question is, what are you going to continue doing? So what is worth your time and effort? When you look back on what has worked and what felt good, what has felt in an alignment, what has produced a result, what are you going to continue doing? So for me, I can look at this on both a macro level and a micro level. So on a macro level, I am going to continue doing Design and Grow. I have really loved the experience of coaching creative business owners who are, a few steps behind me on their journey and sharing what I have learned. And we actually just did a recent training all about systems. And, I had a moment, I'm like, systems are my jam. Like, systems are something that I love. I love creating systems. I'm really love to be organized in that way. And it was amazing. Sometimes you don't realize how you're different to other people. And I went, oh, yep, this is definitely one of my big strengths, is being really organized. And that is how I get so much stuff done. And it's also how I don't need to work on the weekends. And, with the exception of building out an entire new program, that I don't need to work in the evenings, that I can be a present mom, that I, can grow a business that's a thriving business and still go and take a month off over summer, that I can still travel the world and do books and other things because I'm so organized in my business. So, that was a beautiful moment of like, oh, okay, yes, I am good at this. And, it's sometimes it's not until you have those conversations where you can really see your strengths. So that is like on a macro level. And then on a micro level, in terms of what I'm going to continue doing, I've started reading again before bed, which I really enjoy, and reading nonfiction books that are nothing to do with work. So I've been kind of going through some books and just getting them through my local library as well, because we've got a great little local library boss that comes to visit our little village, and you can order books and, book them in. And so I really, really enjoyed doing that, and also expanding my kind of non-work related community. So doing soccer, playing in a women's soccer summer sixes team has been so much fun, so that I'm making connections that, are in my community and nothing to do with work, which I feel like is a really healthy thing for me to do as someone who could happily just spend all my time doing work related things because I love what I do. But I do think it's important to have that mental break and mental shift from that. So what is something that you are going to continue doing? And then the final part of this little exercise is, what are you going to start doing? So for me, one of the things that I'm going to start doing is I really want to get more of a mentor for me. I am currently in a group coaching program for somebody who is much further ahead than me on their journey, which I get a lot of value out of that. But I can see that there are certain patterns and, roadblocks that I have within myself and my business that I can just see, I keep repeating these things, and I really see the value in getting a coach in relation to that. So that is something that I'm really looking forward to personally to do within 2025. So, what is it for you? What is something that you're going to start doing? Is it related to your mindset? Is it that you want to start your email list? Is it that you want to get a virtual assistant? We talked a lot about that within the systems training within Design and Grow. And I was sort of sharing how I've done that in my business and how that has freed up a huge amount of time for me. So the fourth step, and this is the fourth and final step in this process, is to then reset. So we've looked backwards, we've sort of reflected on the year and really given ourselves evidence of, 5 wins so that we can really celebrate ourselves and, be in that space of gratitude towards ourselves and our lives and what we have created for ourselves and, acknowledge and reflect. It's a really powerful place to be in where we live in the wins, we live in the gains. So step 1 was to reflect. Step 2 was to really learn. So learn from the lessons of the past year. We don't just want to, take that information in terms of experience no's or failures or lessons and then not actually learn and improve from them. So really to take that knowledge and turn those learnings into lessons. And then we've done step 3, which was to really sort of review and redo the year and really reflect in terms of how would we do things differently? And we went through that exercise of stop, continue, start. It's kind of like a traffic light system. So stop red, continue amber, and start green. And then the fourth step is to reset. So with this knowledge that we have gained and these learnings, to really set an intention for the new year and really think about what is going to be your focus for the new year. I really love coming up with a word or a theme that I can come back to. And I have done this for a number of years. And just when I'm getting a million ideas and, kind of getting in the thick of the year, to have that word, I put it at the top of every meeting document that my team has. And, I have it actually highlighted in a sort of like a bright yellow color so I don't forget it, and really putting it, at the top of each day as I kind of do my daily to-do list to stay connected to that word. So my actual word for this coming year is going to be focus, because I just want to stay focused on the goals that we set now and not get distracted by all the ideas that we get as creatives and just put those in a parking lot and, in other words, a Google Doc, and really stay focused on the goals and the plans that we have set ahead of time. So, think about what it is for you. What is going to be your big goal, your theme for the year? And it is also important when we think about the future and we think about goals and what we want to achieve to really anticipate any issues that can come up along the way. So really, when you think about this is the goal that I'm going to set, this is what I want to achieve. So say, for instance, for you, it is that you want to start building your email list. So you've got to think, what's going to get in my way? What is going to get in my way of trying to achieve this goal? If you've got a health goal, what is going to get in your way of, reaching your health goal for this coming year? And really anticipate that ahead of time and put steps in place to overcome that. So maybe for, your health goal or even your business goal, you might say, I want to have somebody who's doing this alongside me to help keep me accountable. I'm going to, meet up with a friend and go to a yoga class with a friend because I know if I meet up with them, I will go to the classes. Or, if it's for your email list, I know for me, because I email, I've got my newsletter, my weekly newsletter that I send out every single Friday. And if you're not on my newsletter list, please come and join. I always send the good stuff, and I've got some exciting things coming in store with it for this coming year. So it's nataliewalton.com/newsletter if you're not already on there. And so, because I send that out every single Friday, then, I feel I'm accountable that I can't not do it because people, are used to that rhythm of receiving it every single Friday. And it's the same with this podcast. You are keeping me accountable. So there are different ways that we can hold ourselves accountable in terms of that. But yes, obviously there are things that come up in business and suddenly I'm doing workshops and it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to have to reschedule my calendar so that I can still do the travel and overseas workshops and get the podcast done. That's why I do it in batches. But you've got to anticipate what is going to get in your way. Think about what is going to distract you. How can you anticipate those distractions and overcome them ahead of time? Is it that you create a work environment that your phone doesn't live in your work space or your office space? Or is it that you have, a door or a sign on the door to do not disturb, if it's turned around, or if you've got young children and you're working from home? Is there some kind of signal that you can let people know that you are on focus time and that is how you're going to stay focused? It could just be that you have a little alarm clock that you set off for the top of the hour, and that is maybe a little old-fashioned alarm clock. And while you're focusing on a particular activity, that you just have that ticking away, and that you've got to stay focused on that. So really think about, what will you do when you face roadblocks, obstacles, and hurdles? And it's so important to really think about, what will you do when you, for instance, don't want to exercise? What's one thing that you can do? And really think about that ahead of time, because in the moment, it's so easy to think, oh, I'm just not going to do it. And then suddenly, a week is gone and 2 weeks and then 3 months. And then you're like, yeah, that didn't happen. So, how can you set yourself up for success ahead of time? And really, like I said, thinking about what's going to hold you back. The second part of this, in terms of really setting yourself up for success, to reset for the new year, is to really be in alignment. So really thinking about, how can you feel energized around your goals and get momentum around your goals? So how are you going to get out of your own way? Really notice those patterns that I mentioned, that I can see within myself in terms of, how I get in my way. So really look at what that is for you in terms of how you're going to get out of your own way. When do you feel most energized? Really thinking about that in terms of achieving your goal. I know for me, I feel most energized, once the kids have gone to school, the house has had a very quick tidy while I listen to a motivating podcast or audiobook. And then it's like, okay, between 9 and 12, I'm like head down, really focused. And that's as I'm recording this right now, it's 11:08, or actually, to be technically correct, 11:12 a.m. This is my most productive time. This is when I'm feeling energized. So I'm going to do my highest activity work when I'm most energized. So when do you feel most energized in terms of when you can achieve work? And make sure, protect that time. That time is so precious and important. Really think about, what is your fuel as well? What motivates you? I am really big on, if I say I'm going to do something, I really follow through and do that thing. So, and I find that having external accountability is really powerful. So just as an example of this, so I have had my publisher keep asking me for another book, and I've got an idea for another book, and I've thought, no, for this book, I just want to write it. I just want to write the whole thing, because it's going to be quite different to my other books, and I just want to write it and then submit it as it is. And I've done it in little bits and pieces, but because I don't have that deadline, because I don't have that accountability, it hasn't been finished. It hasn't been done, even though that was one of the things I thought I was going to get achieved this year. Now, I've done a lot of other things, and it's completely reasonable why I haven't achieved that thing. I've been building out an entire program, but it's really interesting to me that I know for a fact that if I had, said to the publisher, okay, this is the book idea, and if they approve it, and then they say, okay, this is when the manuscript is due, there is absolutely no way that I would not meet that deadline, because I am so motivated by external forces in that way. So you got to think, what is that thing for you, that fuel, the thing that helps you stay excited and motivated and accountable as well. and what or who helps you make you feel motivated and that anything is possible, and really sort of tap into those people or, communities that really help you feel excited and motivated. And when do you feel most in your zone of genius as well, just in terms of the type of work that you do? Like I said, when I was talking about systems, I went, oh, yes, this is definitely the thing that I love doing and love talking about and love sharing about. Like, this is definitely in my wheelhouse. So, I've really loved working on some people's homes at the end of this year and doing more interior design work. I've really realized how much I enjoy that creative process. It comes easily to me. When other people are going backwards and forwards on decisions, I know that I'm actually really quick at making decisions. I can have a really clear vision. And once I've decided something, I'm not going to go back on it. It's really fascinating to see how some people can just keep second guessing themselves and how that just slows the whole process down. Really fascinating. And when do you make the most progress? So when, and think about, even just as you're reflecting this past year, when have you made the most progress in your business? What have been those factors that have helped you do that? I know that when I've been writing my books, to book time away and have like a writer's retreat, maybe for you, it might be that you kind of can you go and stay at a family member's house? I mean, I actually did it at my mom's house as well. I would go and stay with her for a week. But even if you can't spare a week, if you could go for a weekend or a couple of days, go and stay somewhere else where you're not having the distractions of home and family and all that comes with that, and really focus on a project or your planning or something that is really important to you. And what excites you most about the new year? Really tap into that and stay connected throughout that. So as I mentioned, I think it's really important to take the time to review the year, your wins, your learnings, your opportunities to learn from your lessons and to grow and evolve so that you can make 2025 your best year yet. I hope that you have found these questions helpful. I would love to hear what your word for the year is going to be. What is going to be your theme? So please either put it in the review section, leave a little comment. If you haven't yet left a 5-star rating or a little comment on the review section, I would love to hear from you. I always love and appreciate that. Could be your little Christmas present for me. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast for any length of time, I would so greatly appreciate that. And or send me a DM on Instagram with what is going to be your theme or word for the year in 2025. I would really love to hear from you. So I hope that you have found this episode helpful. I hope that it has really given you pause to reflect on what you have learned, what you have gained over this past year, and to really set an intention for the coming year and be able to close out those loops so that you can go into the holiday period where you can enjoy some downtime and really give you that space to, just decompress and set yourself up for success in 2025. And I look forward to doing that alongside you. So if I don't get the opportunity to say it before then, have a beautiful and relaxing holiday period. I do have one last episode coming out where I'm going to be sharing my big lessons for 2024. And we will be rolling throughout the holiday period. So, I actually have in the past, I remember once I discovered one particular podcast and it was quite life-changing for me. And that was on one of our holidays. And I don't tend to listen to podcasts when I'm having downtime, but maybe for whatever reason you're in a season that's like, yeah, actually I want to change things, and we're going to keep rolling through with the podcast. So you'll still be hearing from me, but thank you again so much for listening to Imprint, and I look forward to connecting again with you soon. Take care. All of the links and info for this episode are at nataliewalton.com/podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can get a direct download of the latest episode. And I really appreciate when you take a minute to rate and review, as well as share the love with someone you know who might benefit from this episode, or on social media. If you'd like to access a range of free resources, come visit my website, nataliewalton.com. Thank you to Jaeger Media for producing this podcast. And I would also like to acknowledge the people of the Bundjalung Nation where it was recorded. and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I look forward to connecting again soon. I'm Natalie Walton, and you've been listening to Imprint.